the power to love, right? It's not about thinking, oh, I have to tolerate. No, it's wonderful that I get to tolerate, because I'm not tolerating the other person. I'm tolerating myself. I'm learning how to deal with my stuff, cope with my stuff until I can transform it. This week has been an interesting week in that I think it's the first time that I've been here living, with my mom, as I always say, for the time being. First time in these maybe 6 months now, where I felt really not about transformation and growth. I feel like I'm in this space of comfort. And yeah, not being so curious about things, not really being interested to understand things about myself, why I do what I do, and, how to kind of move forward and progress and all that. I feel like I'm losing my mojo, or I feel like I'm losing my, my gusto, my, my desire, the passion to want to develop courage, fearlessness. So I'm not sure what to do about that. Yeah, and I feel like it's getting me to kind of regress a little bit. I'm kind of backsliding, with some old habits, just because I feel comfortable. So I'm out here what's going on, Rubes? What's up? Especially with all this stuff happening astrologically, it's with all this stuff happening with Gemini and Venus Cazimi, like fresh vibes, so I'm just oh my gosh, I don't feel very fresh right now. And then I was listening to an episode of Jessica Laniato's podcast, and she was saying how, we always mess up transits. It's not a new thing, just because there's a certain transit that's taking place, it doesn't mean that I'm going to get it right. She's like, oftentimes human beings screw things up, So, I mean, it was said with a lot of warmth and heart, and in kind of a light, funny way, but also because, that's how it is. And I really appreciated her sharing that, because I feel like that's what's happening right now, just a little bit. So last night, it's funny, I got home, I went to the gym, and there was just this feeling. I just started thinking about my relationships. Actually, Venus Cazimi vibes, eh? That makes sense, eh? Okay. I started thinking about my relationships, okay? Like friendships, relationship with parents, siblings, etc. And, all these people were popping into my mind, like the images of these people. And I was thinking about, it was like I had a little complaint, for each relationship, kind of. This wasn't conscious. It's just kind of how it was arriving in the intellect, or rather on the screen of the mind. And so with one relationship, I'm like, why do people not take me seriously? That bothers me, and that harkens back to all of this stuff that I was going through and wanting to sift through before I got here. Well, what I was going through before I got here, and then wanting to sift through this stuff when I got here to my mom's place, right? And so those same old emotions were erupting. Why don't people why don't they either people think I'm way too stuffy sometimes, or they think I'm way too, or I think I'm too much of a clown, kind of, And there was this feeling that, actually at that moment, I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't process it. And I don't know what got me on the yod train. But I was looking into quincunxes and yods, because I was thinking about my Sun Saturn quincunx, and how, from what I've learned about this placement from that astrologer, what's her name? Okay, I'll get it in a second. But she was saying how with Sun Saturn, oftentimes the person They believe that they don't really need others to take care of them and that they can do things on their own when they really do need people to take care of them. But the way that it's said, it's not like it really did feel a bit more like, the way that I interpreted it, it's like, oh, I'm not I don't know, in a way, like smart enough. Not like, I don't mean smart in terms of, IQ and whatever. I mean, like, I'm not capable of taking care of myself. Like, it just brought up all this weird stuff for me, right? So then I remembered that with the Sun Saturn thing, and I started looking at quincunxes, etc. I was like, considering what we're doing now with the beautiful podcast, that's probably not the most accurate way to look at this. I guess I'll call it a sanskar. Sanskar, it's a word that means the sort of familiar habit patterns that are kind of in the subconscious, but we use them in our daily life and how we act and what we see, our attitude, etc. So this sanskar that is symbolized by Sun, quincunx, Saturn in my birth chart, I was like, there's a more holistic, true way to look at what's actually going on here. And hey, no shade to that astrologer. I probably just wasn't interpreting the information correctly based on whatever state of awareness I was in at that time, right? But that's what I remember, at least. And we all know memories tend to be faulty, right? Because it's just me looking from the perspective of me in whatever state of awareness, attitude, vision stage I'm in at that time. Right? So memories are faulty. Maybe when we want to understand the facts of a situation, some people's memories are quite good for that. Mine not so much. I got some Mercury, Neptune stuff happening, So in terms of the quote unquote reality of a situation, oh, he put his foot here and then she did this. I'm not great for that. But that's also the beautiful thing about memories, right? We can change them, we can refile them. It's something I learned from my meditation teacher. Anywho, Sun, quincunx, Saturn. I was looking all that stuff up. Eventually, I remembered, oh, I've got Venus square Chiron. That was something that I was, we'll say, suggested. I felt like I was sort of being asked to, called to, inspired to look at that aspect, the one that I hadn't paid too much attention to. And then conveniently, I forgot all about it. Until this moment of me thinking about all these relationships and how, this just isn't going my way and kind of complaining, But that kind of helped put me at ease. So I was able to go to sleep. And I actually woke up pretty fresh this morning at the right time. And I sat down. And as soon as I sat down, that heaviness was on me again. Like, ugh, these relationships, they're not what I want them to be. That was the vibe, And it was difficult for me to shake it in my morning meditation. The goal of my morning meditation is to connect with who I am, to remember knowledge about myself, who God is, stuff that's going to uplift me. Because truth is uplifting. Truth is good and pure. I couldn't do that this morning. I was just remembering these relationships and I was feeling so tense. And it wasn't until I started cooking in the morning that that anger, or that annoyance, that frustration, it came up as anger, because it is anger, right? Just that irritation's a more subtle version. But it came up while I was cooking, and I kind of put a jar down, kind of abruptly. And I was like, okay, no, Roops, I don't want to go down that path again. I don't want us to be angry. What's going on? So I just kept asking myself, what's up, dude? Is everything good? Why do we feel this way? What's up? What's up, love? I was being really sweet with myself until eventually I said something in response, right? I was playing kind of like the therapist for myself. I said something in response. I was like, isn't it interesting that such and such and such happened? Just a random observation. And the therapist, me, just went with it. Like, yeah, that's true. That's interesting, And then that became a sort of bridge or a gateway for me to say, you know what? I'm angry. And I feel really annoyed about the state of my relationships and how I feel like people kind of look at me as a bit of a joke. That's how I felt. Right? And I was just there for myself, like, yeah, dude, that sucks. And I couldn't give myself any advice because I was like, yep, that's how I feel. But it was great because when I felt that, and there was also this moment where I could relax. And it wasn't about having my guard up, because with anger, I think it's like, you kind of want to protect yourself. I'm trying to have my guard up, I could let my guard down. I could let my walls down with my own self. Just be like, you know what? Like, it kind of makes sense, no? I was like, I can understand why someone would think this about me because of such and such, right? Or no, first I thought I can understand why this thing happens about the observation, and then I could extend that to myself as well. And I found some compassion for myself. I also found some humility, right? In terms of this whole thing about respect. What does that mean? You know what I mean? All I can do is be myself and just try and be happy and be good vibes for others. And I'll feel good, right? When I'm not like just pretending to be one thing. If I take off that mask of performance, I'll feel good around other people, even when I don't feel like they understand me or get where I'm coming from or why I do the things I do, right? Because at least I'll know that I'm being authentic to myself and I'll experience that. And so it was all that stuff about Venus square Chiron coming up, performance, fifth house, versus seventh house relationships, close relationships, partnerships, business ships, etc. And then I've got my cute little son is in the sixth house in the midst between those two squaring points, and she's in the sixth house. And I was thinking about work. And anywho, I digress. But it was a good moment this morning, and it actually is Venus Cazimi, out with the old and with the new. I want to focus on just spreading light and positivity. And I really mean that, because also in meditation, this was meditation after the cooking. I saw this moment in time from when I was in high school, and I had a really wonderful experience with my coworkers at the place I was working at. It was like this amusement park, and it was just a fun time. And I had a really good experience with all my coworkers, save for two people who happened to be supervisors, not my bosses, but kind of supervisors. And they just didn't like me. And I guess when I think about it, they were older, maybe by 1 or 2 years. And for them, it was a responsibility, and they wanted to make sure that they did their job well, and they were always trying to kind of not kiss up. I don't mean that, but, really trying to look good for the boss, on point. And so, they were teens. They were just doing their best to navigate the situation. It doesn't have to be personal. It's not personal, right? And even when someone wants to try and make it personal, say, oh, no, it's you and you did this, whatever. Okay, I'm living my life. You're living yours. Do you, I'll do me. I shouldn't take things personally. It doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit me. It doesn't benefit them, right? It's okay. Just take it easy. I was like, honestly, net, it was a great experience. Save for those two people. But that's such a small percentage. The rest of it was awesome. When I think of memories from that time, I'm like, man, I had a nice time, and I had a really good relationship with my coworkers. I have really nice friendships that came out of that. And so it's just a great way for me to remember that with this Venus square Chiron, and I guess with this Venus Cazimi, it's cool. Just take what you get, Again, also with Fallen, that example that we used in that episode from week before last. Denzel Washington, his character said, cherish what you got, cherish what you got. It's good. It's good. And that's part of tolerance. You know what I'm saying? Tolerance is a good thing. Very good thing. Tolerance is a great thing because it stretches me. It builds my capacity. Tolerance is love, the power to love. Right? It's not about thinking, oh, I have to tolerate. No, it's wonderful that I get to tolerate because I'm not tolerating the other person. I'm tolerating my stuff. I'm learning how to deal with my stuff, cope with my stuff until I can transform it, right? Until I can gain the strength, the courage, the fearlessness to face and confront my stuff. And then whatever is going on outside of me, it's not going to be bothering me anymore, right? Because I'm different inside. I got a different attitude. I got a different awareness. I got a different vision of myself. So lovely, lovely Venus Cazimi, we're so happy that you've graced us with your presence. And my lovely, lovely Venus square Chiron, I'm also so happy that it's in my birth chart. I am learning. It's a good thing. Yeah. Thanks.